everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have someone who looks like he's in the forest, which is very exciting and mysterious. Paul Anthony is here with me today. We're going to talk about all things podcasting, Paul's journey as podcaster, and get some insight from his side of the microphone. Mm-hmm. Paul, welcome to the How to Podcast series.
Thanks, David. Appreciate you having me on. It's great to be here.
It's good. Tell us a little bit about your show and a little bit about where we should go when we find your show. Where should we start listening? All that great stuff.
Well, I since January, I started doing this Paranormal Among Us podcast, and basically I just interview paranormal investigators, people who have stories to tell about anything paranormal. It's very interesting. I've always kind of been very interested in the paranormal, watching various TV shows on it. And I had a knee replacement in January, and I was doing nothing but watching, ghost stories and TV shows about aliens and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get off my butt since I can't do anything else. I'm going to get up and start a podcast on paranormal and stuff like that. And it's been fun. I'm just about to publish my 20th episode today, and it's going pretty good. It's going pretty good, and it's fun. I've always wanted to do stuff that is fun, that I love to do, and being on camera like this and talking and interviewing people. That's what I love to do. What I love to do.
And you have a background in this as well.
I do. I here in St. Louis, I went to Webster University, a little plug for them. Have a broadcasting degree there. That was back in the mid 90s, showing my age a little bit, but certain paths didn't work out for me. So I didn't do much with broadcasting then. And, I'm trying to get back into it now. I've done several other podcasts. None of them are around anymore. They never had any traction, but it's something I always love to do. And, I spent all that time learning broadcasting and everything. And I figured, hey, what the heck? I'll put it to use eventually. So
it's amazing. Do you do any voiceover work at all?
No, I don't. I've thought about doing that. I have a cousin who does, and I've been talking to him about it a little bit, and it's pretty expensive to get a coach and to get a demo reel going and everything. But maybe I will one day. I don't know.
Because it's kind of interesting, having a podcast can in some ways become part of your demo reel because people can hear you and connect with you. And I just think you'd be an amazing voiceover actor, even just for like intros and outros for people. Mm-hmm. I get asked that all the time. Who can I contact? Who can I pay to voice my intros and my outros? Commercials, little things like that. It'd be interesting maybe as a little side hustle to your side hustle to help people with that, because I know I get asked that constantly, and I'm always looking for people to send their way. So listening to you, awesome. I hear broadcaster,
I appreciate it.
I hear professional, I hear broadcaster, I hear all that in your voice. So I would gladly send you people if you're ever interested in that. So
I appreciate it. Yeah, send them my way. Yeah, I would certainly entertain that idea. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, and that's one thing when we have a podcast, we never really think about all the other things that could possibly come into our portfolio just by getting on the microphone. And people hearing us, connecting with us, going, I need an announcer for my event. I need a voiceover artist for my intro. You just never know who's listening and who could reach out and say, hey, Paul, I love your stuff. Have you ever thought about doing A, B, and C? And you're like, no. So you just never know.
Interesting story on that. One of the sports reporters here in St. Louis that I knew many, many years ago, she's retired now. Her break in broadcasting was she was waiting tables up in Buffalo, New York, and one of the execs at a local TV station was dining there, and he's like, "Oh, you have a really good voice. Would you be interested in doing something like that?" So pretty similar to what you were saying. So you never know who's listening, who's on the other end of the microphone. So
Yeah, but if you're listening to this episode right now and you're hearing Paul's voice, you're like, that sounds like a pro, and that's what I love. I love listening to you talk. So it's great. So think about
Thank
it,
you.
because
Thank you very
again,
much.
there
Thank
it is,
you.
right there. See, there it is. I knew you'd do that. I knew it. But yeah, so I just want to encourage you that I hear things in your voice that I know people are looking for. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen. So if you need a great voiceover artist and you're listening to this right now, links in the show notes. Reach out to Paul and hire him. Pay him lots of money, and he'll do it for you.
There you go.
So,
there you go. There you go.
I love it.
I like that.
So okay, your podcast sounds so incredibly interesting. Have you had any interaction with the paranormal yourself that sparked all this, or just curiosity?
No, I haven't. And that is kind of unfortunate that I've never experienced anything. But actually, I take that back. I have experienced one thing in my life, and it was downstairs in our basement to kind of set it all up. And it's really nothing. My dad died back in 17. My mom was in 13, and we kind of remodeled our house. And I have a bar downstairs, and my dad, we're in St. Louis, Missouri, big, huge Cardinal fan, St. Louis Cardinal baseball fan. My dad had season tickets for a few years, and he had, had a bunch of bobbleheads. So we're remodeling our house, and, I kind of I want to kind of do something I want to have like a sports bar down there. So I got a pool table, and I got a big, long shelf that runs 20 feet maybe, and filled with Dad's old bobbleheads. And there's stuff that I got from Dad, various knickknacks that he had from when I remember when I was a kid. So one day I'm down there working out. There's a little space that we have down there to work out, and I'm working out, and all of a sudden I smell Dad's cologne. And I mean, you have trigger objects that you have a smell that you get that you really, oh man, like when the furnace comes on. Whenever I smell the furnace coming on, I instantly think back to my grandma and grandpa's house. It's the same smell that when their furnace kicked on. I just remember that being there as a kid. And clear as day, I smelled Dad's cologne, Old Spice aftershave. So it was him. I know it. I know they're with us. But unfortunately, he never did, show a sign. I smelled it, and I kept thinking, Dad, are you here? Dad, are you here? Show me a sign, do something, turn the light off. Nothing ever happened. So, but, I believe that he was there. So, and my wife has had, her dad passed back in 2003, and she's bumped into him. She's known that he was around, and I think that when you feel a presence like that, it's it's there. It's them.
So tell me a little bit about some of the guests you've had on. Who has kind of made you sit up straight when they're talking, and when you're like, oh my gosh, like what a story.
So I didn't have this guest on, but they sent me a story that their dad had passed, I guess maybe a year before the story. And he was playing golf. I can't remember exactly. I don't think he was having any marital problems or anything, but he was playing golf, and his father liked to play golf, and he was playing around, and I know what it was. His wife she hadn't tested positive for being pregnant, and he was playing golf, and his father, he sensed his father was there, and he heard, I guess, some noise. I don't remember exactly the story, but he kept hearing his dad's voice plain as day saying, go talk to Natalie. Natalie has something to tell you. Something very good is going to happen. Something like that. So he didn't think anything of it. And then about a month or so later, he had the same experience, and he asked his wife about it and says, or told his wife about it. And she's like, I'm pregnant. I just took the test and it's positive. I'm pregnant. And that was his dad telling him the story.
Wow.
So, I mean, that floored him. And I'm even telling it now, I'm getting goosebumps. I can feel the goosebumps all over my legs and stuff. So then I talked to another guy up in Alaska who is a pilot, and I had seen stuff on TV shows and everything that, aliens have come in and out of portals or have bases in volcanoes or mountains or underground, underwater, and stuff like that all around the world here. And I had seen him on some TV show, and I reached out to him, and I scheduled an interview with him, and I'm talking with him. And his story was that he was taking a charter flight. He's got a small Cessna plane up in Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska. And he was flying the course that he's flown numerous times up. I can't remember the name of the volcano that he was flying by. And it had recently become active after being dormant for so long. And he, out of the corner of his eye, he sees this cloud with kind of a loop hook to it, but a cloud with a hook to it there. And it doesn't change shapes. So, and he explained it as when you're flying and you see the clouds up above you or at the same level as clouds, you see them slowly moving across the horizon and everything. And they tend to change shape as they move along.
Yeah.
This formation never did, and it stayed the same. And in fact, it got a little black blob or something inside it. It never pulsated or anything. It just kind of stayed the same, but eventually got darker. And he saw a little, like a UFO coming out of it, but he wasn't sure what it was, obviously.
Yeah.
So, we talked about that for quite a bit. And then he said another time he saw a very similar object in the sky close to the same volcano. But this time he saw something come out of the volcano side, not the top where the lava and all the steam would come out, but off to the side on like a vent in the volcano would come out. He saw something shoot out of there and fly across the sky and disappear. So we do this interview, and maybe this is really, really strange. Maybe a month later, I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, and I'm watching this TV show called Paranormal Caught on Camera. And they do pretty much same thing I do. I didn't copy off them. They didn't copy off me. But they have people come on and share their video experience or whatever with paranormal. And you know how at the end of the show, they kind of recap things that have happened during the show. So I'm watching the show as we're going on. Then my dogs go outside. So I walked outside with them, and I'm playing with them outside. And I come back and I catch the very end of the show, and they're showing little snippets of the stories that they had on the show. And sure enough, I see that exact same cloud that this guy, Theo Chesley, was talking about, who lives up in Alaska. So I quick rewound the episode. Thank God for DVR. Mm-hmm. And I get to the story. This guy in England takes pictures or took a video of something that he saw in the countryside in England. No volcanoes or nothing around it. It is the exact same type of cloud, a big puffy cloud with a little hook under it. So the people that are on this, the panel of people that are on Paranormal Caught on Camera, they described it as, I guess they said that it was probably a portal or a wormhole that aliens or spacecraft can come in and out, travel from their universe to our universe without having to go, 20 million light years or whatever. Yeah. And I quick texted Theo, and I'm like, dude, you got to see this. Told him the episode number and everything. Go on Hulu and find it. And sure enough, he saw it, and that's exactly what he saw. No. And that's exactly what it was. It was he saw it, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And ever since then, I've been dying. Hey, I need to go. I kept telling my wife, we need to go to Alaska, and I need to go meet this guy, and I need to go flying with him and see if we can see this too. But yeah, that was pretty amazing. That was pretty cool. So
podcasting for you, with your broadcasting background, what kind of things are you able to bring with you from broadcasting and your education into podcasting, and what's really different from what you were taught in broadcasting school to what you're doing today? Because there's got to be some sort of difference with podcasts.
Quite honestly, nothing is different.
Okay.
It's just that, I was kind of, the broadcasting that I was learning to do was being a news reporter, which kind of is the same thing as here. Reading copy, I type all my intros and outros, and I try and type as many questions as I can. So I'm reading. I have I don't use a teleprompter, but I have a Microsoft or Word document program on my computer here, and I just kind of follow it. But that's very similar to broadcasting. I just don't wear a suit and tie when I do it. And then they kind of teach you in broadcasting school to, when you're interviewing somebody, you wait and listen for their inflection when they're finished with what they're answering to your question. Their voice kind of tails off. That's when you jump in to ask them the next question or make a comment on their statement or whatever. So you're not jumping over what they're saying. Camera awareness. You don't want to, be doing something goofy while you're on camera or whatever. And, so a lot of stuff like that, and know how to breathe. Funny story about that. When I was in one of my classes, it was all guys, like 15 guys in the class. It was for a sports broadcasting class. And the instructor was teaching us, breathe from your diaphragm. And so one of the exercises we had to do was we all laid on the floor and we did breathing exercises. So he turns a light on. I'm not sure why he turned the light on, but we're all breathing. Stuff like that. A room full of guys. And I keep thinking, if somebody's walking past this class, this is really weird. So, but and a lot of it is not talking like that. Breathing and, knowing how long you have a breath in you. And so you're not doing when you're finished talking and stuff. And it's very, very similar to what I learned in broadcasting. I'm surprised I remember half the stuff though.
There you go.
It's been so long ago.
So how has your podcast kind of evolved over time, and what are you learning about yourself as a podcaster now?
Well, over time, I mean, I've done other things, other sports podcasts that really haven't gotten traction or anything, and I've learned a lot on each one. Don't expect people who you interview to always get back to you. Don't expect them, and I'm sure everybody, you contact a couple people, and one or two of them start responding, and then all of a sudden they stop. Yeah. And, that happens, and just don't get discouraged by it. At first I was doing this St. Louis high school sports podcast, and I just couldn't get anybody to come on the show. So I just didn't do episodes for a while. And then I'm like, well, you know what, forget this. I don't want to do this anymore. And now on this podcast, Paranormal Among Us, when I can't get guests on, I search the internet. I get stories, ghost stories, alien stories, and I can spend the time reading those stories and not have to skip a week or so, unless I'm really busy with my real job that I don't have time during the week to get to editing stuff and writing stuff. But that kind of taught me that don't fret over it. It's just keep going, keep pushing yourself to get content out. Just reading a story, just keep getting yourself out. And another guy that I know that I was on a podcast with, he was telling me that someone was teaching him that once you get to 30 podcasts, you're rolling. And that kind of goes along with, I used to be a personal trainer as well, that once you start working out for 30 days, or once you're doing something for 30 days, it's a habit. And, doing 30 shows, okay, you're in that habit of pumping out a show every week, every 2 weeks. So something like that. And, I've learned that, over time and stuff, and not to take things too seriously with it, and have fun.
Yeah, it becomes muscle memory at one point where you do something so often that it's there.
Yeah,
I play music, and we do a lot of rehearsals. And I remember rehearsing to the point where when I play bass, for example, I try to practice with my eyes shut or in a dark room so that I can't see my hands. So I'm not fixated on my fingering on my fretboard and making sure that I'm looking at that and making sure I just know where my hands are and where the notes are. And we were playing live, and somebody tripped over the lighting equipment power source, and all the lights on the stage went black. And we're in front of a crowd mid-song, and myself and the drummer, we just kept playing because I knew where my hands were and he knew where his kit was, and the crowd went crazy because in the pitch black, the song just kept chugging away. And we came right back. The lights came on in a couple seconds and we were back to normal. But it was that moment of, what are they going to do? And muscle memory was just there. And I didn't even have to know where I was. I couldn't see the drummer, nothing. It just poof, off. And I think in podcasting, as we do this on a regular basis, you get curveballs all the time of, like it happened for us. We're recording and everything just kind of freezes. And it's like, oh, what are we going to do? You're like, it'll be fine. It'll be okay. There we go. It's just, you start to get comfortable. And I think in early days for me, I was always nervous that I would do something wrong, that I would click the wrong button or hurt my interview with my guest. I was always feeling like everything was so fragile. And after a while, you're like, it's good. We're fine.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, if you go back and look at some of your old stuff, some of the very first ones that you've done up until now, you'll see the progression. I mean, you just get more comfortable with it. And after a while, doing an interview, it's so interesting. You don't realize that there's a camera pointed at you. You don't realize that you're talking to, a global audience. I mean, right now it's just you and me on the screen. I don't know if anybody else is listening, and it doesn't scare me. So, I mean, I think that's part of it too, that, at first you're like, oh my God, what if I say something wrong and somebody in a different country who's never met me or whatever thinks I'm mad or rude or something like that. I'm like, you know what? You can't worry about your audience. Well, you do have to worry about your audience, but you can't worry about, coming across like, oh my God, we're talking to millions of people right now. Chances are you're not.
Yeah. Typically, if I have a new guest who's never been on, I have an author podcast, I keep that information to the end after we're done and just say, hey, just so you know, like, this is a global audience. I have people listening in Africa and India, and you can see their eyes like, we're done the recording. They're all finished, but their eyes get big. Like, what? There's a lot of people listening to you. So good job. I want them to be confident that you can do this. So,
yeah, exactly. And I've had a couple people on that in the very beginning, you can tell that they're not used to, talking on screen or whatever. And then by the end of the interview, can't get them to shut up. That sounded bad. Sounded bad. I mean, they keep going, I should say.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
You can see the shoulders drop. They seem more relaxed, not so tense.
Yeah.
And you can see it on screen. So for you, your podcast, is it all YouTube, like video based, or is it a mix with audio? How do you do your podcast?
I do it all video based. I guess I could, rip the audio from the video and distribute it that way. But I mean, a lot of the things that people talk about, they describe something and I just find it easier to, throw up a picture. There it is. That's what the Mothman looks like or whatever. Or the cloud with the hook with the portal. So, I mean, and I found out that to distribute it to the certain podcast platforms, it has to be audio file. So this morning I just tried iHeartRadio to put it on there and they only do audio. So yeah. So I'll have to do a separate one for that, I guess, if I have to. So, but right now it's on, I have it on Spotify, Google Podcasts, but it's mainly on YouTube. So, and plus that's free. I kind of wanted to get this going. And, this is another thing. If you're wanting to do a podcast and you're not sure about doing it, just start doing something on YouTube. It's free. I mean, you might have to get a microphone and a computer and a good camera, but I mean, it's free to put it out there. And, that's kind of what I did, kind of, get it to where I want it to be, and then I'll put it out on different platforms, and I'll just have to play catch up with it. So I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
no, it's good. And yeah, YouTube is really doing some good stuff in podcasting coming up near the end of the year. They've got some big plans. So I know for me, I listen on my YouTube music app, and you can get podcasts on there now. And I know they're leaning that way heavily by the end of the year. So, and on there you can toggle between video and audio only. So you have an option on that app. So yeah. And I know that Spotify allows through their hosting site video. So you can have all your videos on Spotify. That's another option. But
I'm on there too.
I've been playing with that. Too. Yeah. So yeah, video is great. I think it's great because you get an interaction. You get to see what people are talking about, like you said. And I think the only thing I see when people translate from a video format and then rip and go into audio is like a kind of the Joe Rogan thing, where he's like, let's watch the video of Paul as he runs down the hill. Oh, look at Paul fall down the hill. Did you see that? And as a listener, you're like, what?
What am I missing?
I can't see. I have no idea every time. Explain it a little bit, It sounds funny on video to explain something because you can see it, but you are really good with a cloud with a hook. That's what I mean. That's it. For a listener, they're like, it can envision, what does a cloud with a hook look like? So at least you're explaining it, not just like a picture. You're like, here's the picture.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I don't know if anybody else does this too, but I always, when I'm listening to the radio and I hear a DJ that I like, and I'm like, man, I wonder what this person looks like. Then I, Google them, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect that sound to come out of them. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the fun things for me, to try and match a voice to the face too. Kind of imagine what they might look like.
I heard one podcaster say that a listener said to them, you sounded taller. I'm like, you sounded taller.
How do you sound tall?
I'm like, that's interesting. So yeah, you're right. I see my favorite, radio personality in public, and the voice does not match the look. I thought you'd be in my mind. I picture you in a certain way, and you're completely different. Yeah, and that's kind of cool. I like that.
That's a fun little trick that I do, and I'm sure other people do it too.
So in podcasting, what kind of stuff are you excited about for the future of your show? As you grow your show, do you have like big plans?
So I was on this site, and I guess sometimes, and I've been told that you have to be kind of careful doing this. I just put on there, I need looking for guests for a paranormal podcast, and man, I got like 10 or 15 responses. So, and I'm trying to get back to each one of them and everything, and I think that's how I found you on there.
Yeah,
and it's amazing that people have, at least with the paranormal, a lot of people have stories, and they just don't have any place to tell them. And I find that stuff, interesting. I have a gal coming up. I think I'm interviewing her tomorrow. I don't want to give too much away, but I don't know how this interview is going to come across. I did like a pre-interview with her that I didn't record, and she talks about her husband working with aliens. It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, that part I kind of understand, but then there's some other parts in there, and I don't want to get too much into it. You'll have to check and find out. There's some other things that I'm just not sure how the reaction's going to be. I don't know. I can, parts of it I can understand, and I can see, that we have aliens someplace that we're working with, but some of what she said in this little pre-interview, I'm skeptical about it. But
I had an author come on my show. It might even be the same guest, and I had no idea how to react to some of the things that she was saying on the microphone. And it felt like Men in Black and times 10. Like I thought she was going to pull out that little flash thing to erase my memory at some point during our conversation, because she was going places that I'm like, seriously? She's like, yeah, you go through this door, there's a different level, and in that level you'll see the aliens.
Whoa.
I'm like, you've seen them? Oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, like, I want to believe you. And again, I have no way to not believe you. But
Right.
wow, it was a stretch. I'm like, and again, my audience, I'm like, I hope they get something out of this that inspires them. But yeah, so it might even be the same person. But I had a great conversation with her, and I left more confused than anything. But
I think I will be too. I left that pre-interview like really excited about it, but then the more I thought about it, I'm like, what? So we'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting, and people can believe what they want to believe.
yeah,
So I'm just bringing them the information.
there you go. You're just providing the platform, and
Exactly.
I love it.
I'm not gonna ask her like, really? Are you
Really
sure?
What?
What are you smoking?
Yeah. Any tips for somebody finding guests for their podcasts? Anything that you do? You said pre-interview. That's great. Anything else you do for your guests?
Pre-interview, and I do, at least with this, I try and find like local and paranormal investigators. And I ask them, and kind of do you connect with them, either texting them or on Facebook or wherever, and just kind of get a feel for what they have. And you're not, I mean, you can make a phone call or even do a pre-interview. But a lot of times I like to just jump on and just do it. And that just kind of, they're more natural that way, I guess, and not as prepared. But doing a few texts back and forth, you kind of get the feel of, okay, these people are really into what they're doing and they're going to be a really good interview, or they're very, very amateur investigators and don't really know what they're doing, and maybe steer clear of that. But I haven't had that issue. Everybody that I've talked to is really knowledgeable, and they believe in what they do and enjoy what they do. And they're just good conversation, and sometimes the conversations just go on and on for about an hour, and I'm like, okay, I gotta wrap this up here.
Yeah.
So, but it's fun, and I just like chatting with them. So yeah, let them go sometimes.
One of my pre-interview questions is always, have you ever been on a podcast before? Mm-hmm. And if they're like, oh yeah, I've been on 20, it was like, oh good, because that tells me I can go listen to their episode and get a little sense of their story and how they are on the microphone before they show up on my show. So I've done at least that little bit of research on them. If they say, no, I've never done this before, well, that's a totally different experience. And I need to over communicate and help them through being guests for the first time. So, and I don't have a point of reference. So I'm kind of flying blind as an interview, as a host. So, but finding out if they have an episode is great. Because then, again, you go listen to it and you're like, yeah, this person's really engaging. They don't give one-word answers. Have you ever seen an alien? Yes. That's it. That's your answer. Like, can you expand on that a little? So you kind of get a sense of how they operate. So
yeah, exactly. And same thing with seeing investigators. They're doing their thing. They're not necessarily on camera, but they're talking as they're shooting whatever they're investigating and stuff, and seeing like spirit boxes and stuff go off, and they're commenting on that, and that's kind of the same thing, that you know that they have the good voice for it. They know they don't, they're educated, basically. Yeah.
You have any dream guests you'd like to have on your show?
I don't know if you ever seen the TV show Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
I would love to go there and be on that show, or have them on my show. That just seems fascinating to me. That would be excellent, I think.
No, so if you're listening and you have anything to do with the show, reach out to Paul. Let him know.
I'm here.
I'm sure Paul will give you a great interview and a great experience. Yep. So it's amazing. What about for your video editing and stuff? What are you using? What kind of tools do you like? Help somebody who wants to do a video podcast. Give them the tools.
So I use a program called Final Cut Pro on my MacBook. That is kind of pricey. I got it. My well, that's kind of pricey for somebody starting out. I don't know how good that would be, but there's a ton of tools on that you can use. Um, as far as other programs to use, I'm not really sure because I never really um, explored any other ones because I'm so comfortable with Final Cut. And, you know, I have it. Why use something else?
Yeah.
But then, Photoshop is good. I use a program called, because I don't want to pay for things too much. I use a program called Photoscape X. It's very, very similar to Photoshop. You can manipulate photos. You can create pictures on there. You can do thumbnails on there. It's a lot of tools on there that you can use. And I mean, you can even search for on Google search for programs to edit videos on that are free. I mean, they might not be the greatest. If you're doing, and I don't know what you use to edit on, but for a while when I was just doing strictly audio podcasting, there's a program called Audacity.
Yeah.
It's free. It's great to use. I mean, yeah, use it. I mean, it's really easy to use. And although the one thing that I had problems with is I couldn't record onto it. Like I was doing an intro or outro, I couldn't record onto it for some reason. I did it once or twice, but then it stopped. But then, I have GarageBand on the Mac, and I mean, that's just as good. So there are all kinds of tools that you can use. And if you really want to get fancy and learn all the Adobe After Effects and all that stuff, but I don't know if there's a place for that in podcasts. I mean, I don't know that you need to have all kinds of really crazy special effects. I mean, it would be really cool right now if I could have a special effect of Sasquatch walking past me. That would be kind of cool. But again, that would be fake. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I always ask my guests is, how do you debunk everything? How do we know that this is real and not just somebody on a microphone going through a spirit box? So, I mean, that's another thing that you have to do your research and stuff too. I forgot to add that earlier.
Like it. What about how you record your episode with your guests? What tools are you using there?
So I was using, and like you do, I was using Zoom for a while, but then again, I didn't want to pay for it to go a little bit longer, and I wanted a little bit more extra features. So I finally decided to go through a program called Boomcaster. It's like $20 a month to use, which isn't bad. You get a lot of record time on there, 4 or 5 hours a month. And you can have separate feeds for that. I have just me on there. I have a feed of just you on there. I have a dual feed. I have you can switch cameras, you can add video and stuff on there. And I really like that one. It's really easy to use. And even from there, I think on Zoom too, I'm not sure on Zoom, you can record on Boomcaster and do live to whatever social media platform that you can connect to it. So, I mean, you can have that platform go to YouTube. I haven't done it yet, but you can do that stuff. And that's just one of the features that I love about it. So
it's good. What kind of social media do you use for your podcast?
I'm on Facebook. I don't have a separate page for my website. I just share it on my page.
Yeah.
I do Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever it is. I'm not on Twitter that much anymore, though. Yeah. But Instagram and TikTok and Facebook are my three main ones, along with YouTube.
That's good. Awesome.
Yeah.
As far as your guesting too, do you use like any kind of calendar service at all to organize your appointments with your guests?
I probably should, but it's all up here, and so far I haven't forgotten anything.
Good.
Excuse me, but however I connect with them, I come up with the time that's good for us, and find whatever time zone they're in, and just find a good time, and I put it on my calendar, and I just schedule it through Boomcaster that way. And
good.
So far I haven't missed anybody, but I probably should start doing something like what you do.
I found that when I talk to somebody in Australia, my Tuesday is their Wednesday. So I say to them, okay, I'll see you on Tuesday. That's a different day for them because they're on a different side of the world. So for me, what I like about my calendar tool, Calendly, is that it does do all the automatic time zone translations for me. So you book a time in my calendar, no matter where you are, it shows up on my time, so my schedule. So I know that I'm not double booking or missing something. So that's pretty helpful for me. I have 7 shows, so I have 7 times the price of everything. So like, that's why I have a whole list of free tools on my website that are the tools that I use because I can't afford 7 times the cost of everything, because everything has a limit, and I blow by that limit with the sheer amount of episodes. So I'm always looking for a great free tool, things that work well. One that I would suggest for you is a thing called pod.link, podlink. And what it does is it gives you a shareable link to your podcast. That's pod.link. And you can get the shareable link to your show or to a specific episode. So if I was a guest on your show and and the episode goes live, you can share to me a link to that episode, and it lists out all the different platforms that you are currently set up on. So if you are on Apple or Google or whatever, Audible, it gives you clickable links. So if I'm an Apple user, I can click the Apple. If I'm an Android user, I can click this button. And it gives you every option of everywhere you are. And it's really simple, and it's free. You don't have to pay for anything. And it's kind of like a little mini website that lists all of your stuff. I was on Podpage for a long time. They just took away their free plan. Again, I have 7 shows. I can't afford 7 subscriptions to Podpage. So that was great when it was free, because it gave me kind of that list from my RSS feed. So as my episodes go out, I always had a website. So now I have this pod link, which is a nice little tool to get that shareable link. So it's one of the free ones that I use. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Pod.link. I'm going to have to check that out.
There you go. Yeah. Cool. So again, for somebody starting a new interview podcast, they have 0 interviews. They have a great idea for a podcast, and they're trying to find their first few guests. How do you find a guest when you're just starting out and you have no episodes? Any tips on how to find your first 5 guests?
What I would, depending on the topic, I would, try and find somebody that maybe a friend, maybe if you're friends with somebody on Facebook that has the same kind of interest in whatever kind of show you want to do, just reach out to them, and you'll be a lot more comfortable interviewing for the first time somebody that instead of a complete stranger, and just do that, practice that for a little bit, interviewing friends or doing shows like that with a friend, and then kind of expanding once you feel comfortable and confident that you have the interview format down pat. Then you could reach out to maybe a stranger that is more an expert in whatever field you want to do the podcast on, and you'll come across a lot better than just doing that right off the bat and not knowing what you're gonna get out of yourself.
Awesome. I'm going to put you on the spot because you're a professional broadcaster. Can you do a commercial for your podcast for us? Tell us about your show, where it is. I want you to make it feel like a radio commercial. I want the good, whatever you want, the booming voice. I want all the call to action. I want everything in a nice, tight commercial format that we can provide and promote to your podcast to everyone. Do you think you can pull that out? What do you think?
I'm not good at ad-libbing. So here goes nothing. I don't even know where to start with this.
A drink first. Always start with a drink. That's a good idea. I just want people to fall in love with your podcast because I think it's a great idea.
I have something that I wanted how I want it to go, but I can't think of how to get there. Do you or anybody have a paranormal experience that you would like to share? Or no, that wouldn't work. I listen to the Billy Joel channel, and on Sirius XM, they every now and then they have a show, and I kind of feel like him almost being put on the spot and stuff like that.
So this is the nice thing is we have editing, so nobody's even gonna know this is happening. So
no, hear the final result like this. Put it all in like this. This will be great. I mean, Maybe I'm not so professional as I think I am.
There you go.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Have anybody scratch that. You should see my editing. I for an intro that takes like 10 seconds, I go on for like 5 minutes.
Well, that's actually a good thing to hear, actually, by the way, just so people hear that. So that's good.
I mean, unless you're a very seasoned pro and are on the nightly news every day, you're not going to get this all in one take. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know, but I can't get it all in one take because you get kind of tongue tied, or you're thinking of something and something else happens in your peripheral and you don't get it. So, yep. Wow.
Just tell us where your show is, because I know it's amazing. There's nothing about this show that would make me not want to listen. So just where it is, how do we find you? What's coming up on the show?
Coming up next on the next Paranormal Among Us, I will be talking with Ry Voss from Mexico, who has his own podcast called The Lost Frequency. We'll be talking about all things paranormal. And if you have any story that you would like to share, whether it's ghosts, Sasquatch, aliens, UFO, whatever you have, or if a friend has a story, email me now at paranormalamongus72@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to have you on as a guest or just read your show. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel on YouTube. You can also find me on Spotify, Google Podcasts, any place else that you would see YouTube, any place else that you would find podcasts. Paranormal Among Us. Come see me and we'll have a good old time. Maybe I wouldn't say come see me, we'll have a good old time. That sounded weird.
I felt welcomed. I felt like I was allowed to join. That was great.
Come see me. We'll talk about paranormal stuff and have fun chatting. There you go.
So what I wanted to say to the listener right now, you're a brand new podcaster and you're thinking, you know what? Everyone sounds so polished and perfect in podcasting. And I'm trying to find my voice. I'm trying to figure out who I am and how I can even do this. Like when I listen to Paul's show, it's so amazing. And I don't know. I don't even know if I can do this. I just understand that we're all kind of working our way through. Paul's got more knowledge than I'll ever have in broadcasting. And I look to you, Paul, as a great example of how to do this. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, there's no way I can do this, you can do this. There's tools to help you. There's people here who will encourage you. And that's the one thing I want in this podcast, is to encourage everyone that if you have a message, if you have an interest, a passion for something, the paranormal, and you'd love to just get on and nerd out about that and build a community around you about that, you have the opportunity to do this. You don't have to be a big fancy professional suit and tie to get on the microphone and share your voice. There's space for all of us in podcasting. And that's what I really wanted to encourage, is for those listening, you can do this. It's exciting and there's a lot of opportunity. And again, you never know who's listening. You never know what opportunity is going to come your way. You just found a great voiceover guy that's going to do amazing commercials for you with Paul. So that's the joy of podcasting. You get to meet great people, build community, build an audience, and share a message that means something to you as a podcaster. So check out Paul's podcast and make sure you go and subscribe, follow, do all the things. And make sure you listen to a great show, because Paul knows what he's doing. And I love it. So
I appreciate it. I got you fooled, but I appreciate it. No, I'm kidding.
It's all smoke and mirrors. Don't look behind the curtain. Yeah. I love it. So, Paul, again, where can we find you on social media?
I am on Facebook, just my name, Paul Anthony. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not sure what my handle is on Instagram or TikTok. I think TikTok is Paranormal Paul.
Okay.
I'm not sure. You have it's like passwords. You have so many things that you always forget what they are. And, as I get older, I realize that it's really hard to remember things.
Yeah. So, don't tell anybody, but I have a piece of paper taped to my computer with all my passwords because I forget them all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like, I have no idea. So, yeah, we'll have links in the show notes. That'll be super easy. People can just click right there and go straight to you. So
Exactly.
I love show notes. Paul, thank you so much for being here. It's great. Continue with the podcast. I'd love to hear that episode that makes you a little uneasy. That's coming up, possibly with that guest that makes you go, I don't know about this one. So I'll be listening for that. Hopefully it comes out.
I'm recording that tomorrow. I'm not sure when it's going to air. Probably in a couple weeks, but that'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting.
Awesome. Everyone go check out Paul's podcast. It's amazing. And if you have a paranormal story and you would love to share it, Paul would love to hear from you. So reach out, let him know.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.